Love yourself enough to set boundaries for your peace and your purpose.
Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together.
Kendell Lenice. I am your host, Kendell Lenice. Allow me to introduce myself to you just a little bit further. I am a certified transformational life coach, speaker, and author, as well as a certified meditation practitioner and content creator. I'm so glad that you decided to join me on my life podcast. On this podcast, I will educate, elevate, and entertain you with various topics. We will do live coaching, and I will hopefully give you a different perspective on some of your favorite topics and introduce you to new ones. I'm not sure how you stumbled upon this podcast. I'm just so glad you did. Before we get started, do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening and rate if you are able to. Thank you so much once again for tuning in, and now on to this week's show. Today's show is sponsored by 617 Lip Love, Organic Lip Moisturizer Balm by Lenice. Get yours today at leniceboutique.com. This product is for men and women, and its signature flavor, eucalyptus mint. It's the bomb, y'all. Get it today at leniceboutique.com. Protect your lips, heal your lips at all costs. 617 Lip Love Organic Lip Moisturizer Balm. Get yours today at leniceboutique.com. Support Black businesses, support women-owned businesses. leniceboutique.com. Hey everybody, it's Kendell Lenice and welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. This is your life podcast. I go by the name of the Remix Coach. I'm a transformational life coach for those that are tuning in for the very first time. Welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. So, since it worked before, I'm going to go ahead and stream live on YouTube. Hi y'all, hi YouTube, as well as the podcast world. So I'm blessed and pleased that Shine with Kendell Lenice is all over the podcast platforms. We got it on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. So if you got an Android and a Google Galaxy, one of those type of phones, you can go to Google Podcasts. If you got the iPhone, like me, Team iPhone, go to Apple Podcasts. But it's all over the place. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com where you see my books. You'll see my podcast. It's on Audible, as well as, like I said, iHeart and everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are familiar with podcasts, you know exactly where to go to get Shine with Kendell Lenice. Then I have some people like, well, how do I get a podcast? And if you're watching on YouTube, it's great to listen to a podcast when you're in the car, when you're working out, when you're in the kitchen cooking, when you're going to the bathroom. And you can just, and it's a free app. If you have a Google phone, you can download Google Play and your podcasts are right there. And Apple Podcasts, it comes with the iPhone. And again, you can go to Amazon.com, Google Kendell Lenice, and you'll see my podcast right there, and you'll be able to listen to it. So thank you, everyone, for coming back. So I have a lot of supporters who support Shine with Kendell Lenice from the very beginning. So thank you for continuously coming back. I do see the numbers. You are watching and downloading it. Thank you so much. And if you stumbled upon this podcast, I'm so glad you did. As always, I'm going to start with this week's life note, but I just want to check in with you. How are you doing? How is your mental health? How is your physical health? I want to see about you because that is important. We got to deal with the emotional and the mental health as well as the physical health. So if you haven't scheduled your doctor's appointment, make sure you do that. You guys know I'm a colon cancer survivor. So if you have not booked your colonoscopy, please do that. We're on the heels of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Make sure you book your mammograms. But get your overall makeup. Don't wait for somebody to tell you it's time to go to the doctor. Make sure you do that because I want you here as long as you can possibly be here. So I'm an advocate for your health, but I want you to be an advocate for your health as well. Okay. All right. So today we are talking about boundaries. As a life coach, I got to constantly tell people about boundaries. And I'm so glad that Red Table Talk did a show on boundaries as well. And they had their expert on there. And in this world of life coaching and, you'll talk to therapists and counselors, we've always talked about boundaries and setting boundaries. Now, I can say, even as a life coach, my boundaries weren't clear with certain people. But today, at 50 years old, they are very clear. And I want yours to be clear too. So today's show is all about the beauty in boundaries. So, as always, we're going to start with this week's Life Note. All right, it's time for this week's Life Note. All right, so the quote today is, so if you're just tuning in for the first time, a life note is a saying or a quote by someone amazing. Sometimes it's even me, but someone amazing to carry you throughout this show's topic, throughout the next week, next month, and the rest of your life. So this quote comes from Mandy Hale. It says, "It is necessary and even vital to set standards for yourself and the people you allow in it." One more again. It is necessary and even vital to set standards for yourself, your life, and the people in it. So setting standards is essentially setting boundaries. So we're going to get into boundaries today and the importance of boundaries and the beauty of boundaries. Now, the people that you set boundaries with, they might not see the beauty in your boundaries, right? And that's okay because they're your boundaries. They're your preferences. They're your desires. These are your boundaries. And oftentimes boundaries protect you, right? And a lot of people don't want you to have boundaries, especially family members, right? And you have to do that for your healing. And just in my 40s, late 40s is when I started setting boundaries for real when it comes to family. No, it was still in my 40s, but not my late 40s. It was in my 40s. It wasn't all the way completely successful, but it is now. Even with my mother, when my father was alive, I'll be coming up on 2 years of his death. Family members, close friends, co-workers, bound spouses, boundaries are very, very, very important. You have boundaries with your personal space, your personal time, your personal items. It's about protecting yourself. Now, if someone doesn't agree with your boundaries, they might say that it's selfish, right? Or if someone doesn't agree with how you are as a person or your feelings or, your emotions, they might think, why you got to do that? When people even say, you don't got to cry about that. This is going to be all right. You're going to be okay. You so sensitive. Why are you doing this? That's not protecting and appreciating the boundaries that you set, meaning like no one else should be able to come into your space and tell you how to be, feel, think, move, or groove, right? But oftentimes people do. So when people think about boundaries, and now people are really implementing boundaries in their lives, which I think is great, because a lot of people are in the process of being repaired and healed and, discovering new things about themselves and how they feel and all of that. Let's start with the obvious boundaries. The obvious boundaries are Don't be going in my dresser. Don't be going in my closet. Don't be wearing my stuff. Don't be using my stuff. Don't be using my hair stuff without asking. Don't go in my room without asking. Don't use anything of mine without asking. That's not selfish. That's boundaries. Like, no one should be able to just walk up in whatever and take whatever and not ask. You walk into a room with your roommate and she got your shoes on, or she got your hat on, she got your glasses on. It shouldn't go down like that. There should be some sort of boundaries. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to say yes. It doesn't mean that you're not going to oblige whatever the request is. But knowing that you have strong boundaries, meaning somebody's going to have to ask you, that's a huge thing. And some people don't have boundaries in their lives, and they're like, oh, well, you're my sister, or you're my this, so we can do whatever. But it's still about setting boundaries. Everyone has a right to their own privacy, their own stuff, and all of the things that they need to set for them to feel comfortable and okay. So I'm going to look at, I want to just read the definitions of boundaries. So what does it mean to set a boundary? So boundaries can be defined as the limits we set with other people, how far they can go, what they can say to you, what they can do to you, what they can use from you. Those are setting boundaries. So which indicates that we find acceptable or unacceptable behavior towards us. Emotional worth and boundaries. You are entitled to your own feelings and given situations to others. So I'm going to start with psychology today. 4 ways to set and keep your personal boundaries. And then we're going to go deeper into it. So psychology to say today, which if you watch this show, you know, or listen to this podcast, you know, that, outside of my take, I love going to psychology today just to see what they say. And it's really about knowing your limits, clearly defining what your intellectual, emotional, physical, spiritual boundaries are with strangers, work colleagues, friends, families, and intimate partners. So let's deep dive into that. So think about your emotional boundaries. What are your boundaries? Do you want somebody to emotionally to tell you to suck it in, get over it? You don't need to cry. What's wrong with you? Those are really setting boundaries. Like, hey, if you see me crying, don't be trying to wipe my tears. Don't tell me it's going to be okay. Don't say, those are even types of boundaries. Don't make me feel this way, and setting certain boundaries where someone, if they cross it, they understand that that's a boundary. And you'll hear it a million times on this show, communication is important because it's not up to everybody to figure out your boundaries. It's up to you to tell somebody what your boundary is. And your physical boundary, that could be like my shirt. Social distancing. If you can read my shirt, then you are too close. Now, everybody on YouTube gets to see that. But social distancing. Now, everybody has learned what some physical boundaries are when it comes to the pandemic, right? Don't stand too close. Some people don't like people in their personal space even before. I think the 6 feet is like an amazing thing because you kind of force people to set boundaries. Now, certain cultures don't play with somebody up on their back breathing. I know black folks don't like that. Hey, whoa, back up. And a lot of other cultures don't like that. But some cultures feel like they can be right up in your ear, right? You can smell their breath. You can feel their breath on the back of your neck. Think about when you're at an ATM machine, or you're at the cashiers and you're trying to use the machine and to swipe your card and somebody is right up on you. Like, those are personal space, physical boundaries. and you set them. Now, if somebody is always up on you and you don't say anything, or at work, someone's coming in your personal workspace, your cubicle, your office, and they're always in there, they don't knock on the door, they just come on in, and they're used to doing that, and you know you don't like it, but you don't say anything, you didn't set your boundaries. Because think about in someone else's office or cubicle, somebody might knock. Can I come in? Hey, can I, see what's going on with this report or that report, or hey, check this out on my phone. They're going to ask. But if you haven't firmly set boundaries, then they're just going to walk right in. They're going to pick up your pencil. They're going to use your stapler. They're going to even put their little grubby hands on your mouse. They're going to get on your computer because you haven't set boundaries. All it takes is one time for somebody to get on your computer, open up your office refrigerator, use your microwave, use their little spoon to stir their coffee, to you to say, oh, that's mine. At least if you're going to use it, can you ask? But see, the person who sets the boundaries, that people are looking at them crazy. No, you have a right to set your boundaries. And once you typically set them out the gate, then there's no issue or concern or problem. But the minute that you let it slide, think about y'all, because y'all know I'll be working with the children at the elementary school. So think about back in the day when you were little and a substitute came into your classroom and you knew you was going to get a substitute. So you knew you could act a whole fool because your teacher had expectations and boundaries. Listen, you're not going to walk up on me. You're going to raise your hand when you have to speak. When you have to go to the pencil sharpener, you're going to raise your hand. When it's time to do this, these are boundaries. You're not going to come up to my desk. I'm going to call on you. They said it right out in the beginning. These are the boundaries. This is what I expect. These are my expectations. But when you have a substitute, sometimes the substitutes come in trying to be all nice, trying to be all cool. They don't know the lay of the land yet. They don't want to ruffle any feathers when it comes to the children. So they kind of lay low, right? Think about that. Have you ever had a substitute come in and said, okay, listen, this is how it's going to work. This is da 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 da. I know I did. I was like, listen, when I substituted, I was like, listen, I know how y'all try to get over on substitutes. Not today. I'm not the one. You're going to act like your teacher is here. You're going to do what you're supposed to do. And you set those boundaries up front. If you don't set those boundaries up front, then they're going to think that they could do whatever. And then the next time they see you, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, I know she don't say nothing. She don't. And then the minute you set a boundary after somebody has seen you 2-3 times, and then you set a boundary, now they're looking at you sideways like, oh, you ain't had that boundary before. And now all of a sudden you're trying to have those boundaries. And that's what's happening with a lot of people and a lot of adults now. They're trying to set boundaries when it should have been clear earlier on. And it's never too late to set boundaries, but you do have to communicate your boundaries and say, there's a new sheriff in town, things are about to change. So let's see what else Psychology Today has. They have be assertive, just what I was talking about. So number 2 on their list of 4, be assertive. Creating and stating boundaries is great, but it's a follow through that counts. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. It's the follow through that counts. So if you be assertive and say, listen, this is how it's going to go, and then you all dial it back, and you're not really following through. If you tell somebody, don't wear my jacket, just thinking of something, right? It could be a sister, a brother, a husband, a wife. It could be whoever. If you say, don't wear my jacket, that's assertive. Like, hey, I'm setting this boundary. Maybe you can wear the green, purple, yellow, and blue one, but don't wear this here black one. So they're like, well, she ain't here, so I'm going to go ahead and use this black one. They come through the door. You see them with the black one. You like, you know what? I'm going to let that go. So they're saying, oh, okay, well, she seen me with the jacket on. She didn't say nothing. Then you wearing it again. Even though you were assertive and said, do not wear this jacket, when you saw them with it on, you didn't say anything. So now the 2, 3, 4 times later, now the 5th time, you're going to be like, listen, I told you 8 weeks ago not to wear my jacket. And they're like, well, wait a minute, you saw me 3, 4, 5 times and you didn't say anything. Now all of a sudden, so now you're the problem. So you really have to follow through with what you say. The only way to truly alert others that your boundaries have been crossed is to be direct. Being assertive, particularly in an uncustomized way of doing so, can be scary, especially if you're not that assertive type of person. So start with something small and build up an assertive skill that goes, further into a larger task. Those are for the people. Now, the people that don't have no problem being assertive, I'm sure you have clean-cut boundaries with most people. If not, you're working towards that. Number 3, they have practice makes perfect. When you first start acting assertively, if it is a departure from your habitual state, you may be afraid that others will perceive you as mean or rude. That's what I was talking about earlier. When you have respect for yourself and you have boundaries set in place for yourself, for your mental health, for your strength, some people think it's rude because you're like, don't touch that. Don't do that. Don't call me after 9. Don't do this. They're like, what's wrong with them? You're setting your boundaries. If somebody calls you after 9, let's just say every single night, and they got drama, right? And you have to get up 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning for work, play, fun, whatever. You got to get up. And you tell these people or person, do not call me after 9. If they call you after 9 every time and you answer the phone, giggling and Googling on the phone, and then said, girl, I got to get off the phone because I got to go to work, then you didn't really put your foot down. So they were like, well, I called her after 9. I called him after 9 on Monday. I'm going to call him after 9 on Tuesday. Because if he ain't say nothing Monday, so let me do it again. But you told him that last Saturday. But since you answered and since you were not firm and you didn't have follow through, then they're going to continue to do that. So then when you were like, then if you say, okay, listen, do not call me after 9. I don't care what your problem is. As long as your house ain't burning down, as long as you ain't in danger, don't call me. Then they're going to be like, dang, you rude. No, I just told you before and I was light with it and now I'm putting my foot down. Because when you call me with your drama, then I'm dreaming about it. Then I'm trying to figure out how to fix your problem. And then I can't even go to sleep because you got this on my mind or that on my mind or whatever you were talking about. So it's really protecting you. But a lot of people want what they want. And y'all know this about people. All right. So number 4 on their list is if all else fails, delete and ignore. All right. So voice your boundaries first and follow with action. As long as you have tried to tie up loose ends and given family members, friends, ex-partners, or whoever who may be closure and promises you made, you no longer owe them anything. If you have asserted yourself and made it clear to another person that he or she is not respecting your boundaries, it is okay to ignore correspondence from them at that point. Remind yourself of your own worth and that no one has the right to make you feel uncomfortable or take self-defined space away from you. All right. So let's talk about that. Let's dive into that some more. Let's open up that bag. So, if you tell someone they're not respecting your boundaries and they continue to do it, that's a problem. That's a problem because you voiced it. Now, if you haven't been precise and clear, then if you say, you know what, don't text me. Don't friend request me. Let's talk about social media or phones. And they do it anyway and they text you and you're like, I said don't text me. If they continue to do that, they are disrespecting you and what you've asked for. And they've disrespected the space, the self-defined space that you set for yourself. And that you would have to question, like, is this my friend, or if this is because someone who cares and knows how. Now, this is the thing. It goes back to teaching people how to treat you. And it doesn't mean that someone is deliberately trying to overstep the boundary. It's especially if you've never had boundaries before and then all of a sudden now you have boundaries, right? So if you all of a sudden have them now and you didn't have them before, some people need time to get that ramp up because they're not used to it. But if you meet somebody and you have boundaries from the door, then they already know how you get down and how you roll. And then they still might define you as rude. Now, people oftentimes find it hard to set boundaries because they don't know how to do that, because they don't want people to think something different of them. And I was watching Red Table Talk, and they had a little scenario where the roommate was just all in the girl's closet and saw something on her in her room and decided to use that. It was an invitation. So she took it upon herself to go in the roommate's room, the invitation, and went to the party that the roommate was invited to. And they're like, well, wait a minute, like no boundaries. And if you ever see some people that are free like that, they just go take your stuff, wear your stuff, use your stuff. You know, the people that they just take over them and they have no boundaries, no kind of clear direction. And they're like, it's okay. I had this one friend one time. I was meeting her at an event. And she was 2 hours late, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And she didn't respect the boundary that I set up. And I was saying, if you're not, after I'm getting ready to leave, I've been waiting for 2 hours, I'm about to leave. So as I was about to leave, and she was like, girl, just stay, just wait. No, because now you're disrespecting my time. And she was like, girl, it's no big deal. I'm here now. Ain't no big deal. And that's a way of stepping over the boundary and stepping over that respect. And it's a fine line between that respect and that boundary. When you set it up front, okay, I'm not going to wait past this time. And as I was leaving, she was coming. And when you minimize somebody's feelings or you dismiss someone's feelings, that's the emotional boundary that you're not respecting. And a lot of people don't understand that is a boundary. People think that that's something else because people think boundaries are physical. Like you're touching my stuff, you're in my space, you're doing this, you're standing in front of me, you're using my stuff. Yes, those are boundaries, but there's different types of boundaries. And you can definitely keep healthy boundaries by learning to say no and finding it easier to, how some people will sacrifice their own whatever just to say yes, even though they really want to say no. So that's a boundary. Sometimes, no, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I've had to set boundaries even with family members. Like sometimes I will not answer the phone. If I know, and I was telling a family member this week, if I know that there's going to be some drama or there's always record of drama or somebody's trying to pull you in something that you don't want to be in, then that's my boundary. I'm not going to answer the phone. If I see this family member call, then that family member call, then another family member call, I'm like, it's a mess going on and I'm setting a boundary. I'm not answering the phone. So somebody might say that that's rude. Somebody might say that, how about you answer the phone? If it's an emergency, it's an emergency, but if one person calls and the next person calls and it's not an emergency because somebody's going to send a text like, hey, you need to call right back. And then of course I was right. So I really had to set that boundary. And then another family member, I only can speak to her. I had to set the boundary to speak to her no more than 20 minutes at a time because I found out that if I speak longer than 20 minutes or 30 minutes, there's going to be tension. There's going to be ridicule. There's going to be drama. There's going to be getting in somebody's business, talking about somebody. And I don't want to partake in that. Because this person, if you don't agree with them or if you have your own view or an opinion, then they're going to try to make you have the same view or opinion. If you don't, then they're going to argue with you. And I don't want that in my life. I'm trying to protect my energy. I'm trying to protect my space, and I'm trying to protect my mental health. So certain people, you do have to set boundaries and love them from a distance, and maybe not speak to them every day, but maybe speak to them once a week or twice a week or once a month, depending on the boundary that you set. And there's nothing wrong with you setting that boundary to protect your mental space and to protect your mental health and your physical health, because it's all connected. And you don't want to be taken out of your character or be pulled into some mess because your boundaries were weak. So it's important to make sure you protect yourself with boundaries, and expecting respect. You deserve kindness. You deserve proper communication. You deserve someone speaking to you in a certain manner, so you can set that boundary. I remember, and I don't know why I keep talking about Red Table Talk, but that's one of my favorite shows, and Taraji's Peace of Mind. I love shows that you can grow from, you can learn from. I watched those episodes multiple times, because as a life coach and a woman, I love to learn, and I love to watch people heal and transform and be better and grow. And I was watching Red Table Talk, and Will was on there, and they were talking about, this was a couple of years ago, and Will and Jada were talking about their story and how they met. And I know they're in the news now, and I just got to say, as far as Jada, like, people are coming down on her, and I don't appreciate it. And I'm going to tell you why. She has a show. Her show is about healing and growth. Will has been her husband for half of her life. They've been together since she was in her early 20s. She just turned 50, right? So, of course, a lot of her healing and growth and experiences are going to have to do with Will, because he has been the constant in her life. So people are like, well, she hates him. She's this, she's that. No, she is growing on national television, a national platform, and he's doing the same thing. He got a book coming out, but they always ridicule the woman, and celebrate the man. Oh, like, she's doing this and she was doing that. She is not. That woman is not. She is walking in her authenticity, in an authentic space, and living her truth and speaking her truth. And that's a lot to be said about that, because she will give it to you straight and no chaser. And it takes a while, and it takes growth to get to that. And I love Jada because she owns her stuff. And that's, as a life coach and as a woman, I can respect that. And I just definitely had to say that. And let me continue. So she was talking about their relationship and how she never wanted to get married. And, she felt like she was kind of pushed down the aisle in a sense. And Will Smith said he pushed her, but she was talking, and, Jada, confirms that she was a little rough around the edges, and she be cussing and stuff, and Will cuss too. But his boundary was, you're not going to cuss at me or to me or towards me. And all it took was one time, the first time she did it way back when, in the 90s, and she hasn't done it since. So he set that clear boundary, like, listen, I grew up with a toxic household. He said, my father beat my mother. There was a lot of screaming, arguing, cussing, arguing, all of that. I'm not going to have that. So never curse at me. And the 20-something years, he said she never did it again. Now, if he said that and she still was cussing him out here and there, and he let it slide, then that boundary was disrespected by her, if that had happened, or he didn't own that boundary that he really put in front of her. And that would have been a problem. So when you set a clear boundary, it's up to the person to respect it, and it's up for you to enforce it. And you want to, when you're setting a boundary, right? You want to be the dictator of your own feelings and emotions. You want to be able to tell somebody what the correct feeling is for you. Not someone to disrespect your boundary and say, Well, I know you better than you know yourself. You ain't got to cry about that. This happened to 3, 4, 5 people. You ain't got to be upset about that. That's a boundary that somebody is crossing. There is almost like the gaslighting. They're telling you how to feel and what you should feel and why you shouldn't feel this way. And it's almost like they're making fun of you. You ever have somebody do that and it's like, dang, you too sensitive. Why are you crying? Or why are you this? Or why are you doing that? It's like they're making fun of you and they're not respecting the boundaries that you have, which is the freedom of emotion, emoting. And they don't like that, or they think that you shouldn't. And also, another boundary is if you need me time, right? A lot of people need me time. I take my me time all the time. I don't have no problem with getting that. But some people have trouble with boundaries. They have trouble with setting boundaries and sticking to them. If they want to spend time alone, but Tom, Dick, Harry, all these people want to come along. They don't know how to say. If you say, you know what, I just want to be by myself, right? And someone's like, no, girl, no, man, let me go. Let me show you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you're not respecting that space and you're not respecting that boundary. So even if someone says, you know, I need my space to sit by the water and watch the rain fall on my forehead. And someone's like, let me go with you. I like that too. But if they're telling you this is the boundary, this is what I want to do at 4 o'clock every single day, then you should be able to go ahead and do that and allow that person to be. All right. So as we conclude, I want to give 21 examples of healthy boundaries in relationships. Now, when we talk about relationships, it's not just romantic relationships. Anytime you're in relationship with someone, it's a relationship. Whether it's a coworker, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a family member, whether it's a sibling, that is a relationship. So, setting boundaries is a critical component of maintaining a healthy connection. So, this is liveboldandbloom.com. So let's see what they have here. Saying no. Number 1, refusing to take the blame. Sometimes your partner may place the blame on you out of hurt or guilt. The behavior does not mean their anger is your fault. Do not skirt away from that emotion, acknowledging their pain and let them know you are there for them, but assert that you will not accept responsibility for their action. All right, so that's good. And that's setting a boundary like, no, you ain't going to blame me for what you did. That's setting that boundary and not allowing them to come past that barrier and blame you for their mishap. Accepting respect, number 3. Number 4, dictating your own feelings. Learn to decipher your feelings from your partner's feelings and don't allow them to speak for you. Finding your identity outside of a relationship, asking for help, asking for space, communicating discomfort, sharing mutually, sticking up for yourself, choosing to be vulnerable, your right to your privacy. So let me stop right there. So let's talk about a romantic relationship. I know people who have said in a marriage, in a partnership, in a relationship, you have no privacy. There's no boundary between man and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend or whoever. I can see your phone. I can use I saw this on Married at First Sight. Use your toothbrush. Disgusting. I can, go in there and get the juice that you bought for yourself because we're together. So yours is mine, mine is yours. And if you say, hey, this is my juice in here, this is my cookie, this is this, it's not being selfish. It's your boundaries. Like, hey, I'm communicating to you. I'm telling you this is mine. And I expect you to respect the boundary. So let's see. So the right to privacy, there are many different levels of privacy. You may share a home computer. And that's a thing too. If it's your personal laptop and they don't ask, they just go on your laptop and use it. There's no boundary. If there's privacy on there, that could be something that's private for you on there. That could be something that you're planning for your spouse or your partner or someone, and they're just using your devices. So you can share a home computer, but keep your email password to yourself. The choice is reasonable. Your belongings through text, your belongings, thoughts, text, journal entries, and even topics as big as past relationships or traumas are yours to share, not share at your discretion. Infringement on those boundaries is not acceptable. Yep. I've had someone do that to me, and I can't even say names, where people exploit your boundaries and tell your personal business to other people. That's not cool. That's stepping over a boundary. If you share something with them and then they share something with your friends or your family members, that ain't cool. That's a boundary. And some people don't even know what boundaries are, and they step over their habitual boundary steppers. And it's an infringement on your boundaries. And you have to address things like that. Like if this was a private conversation between us, or this was a private this between us, or I gave you this, you don't share that with other people. But some people don't have boundaries even when it comes to keeping secrets. Not even secrets, just your personal conversations. They don't see that. 13, ability to change your mind, your right to your own time. Let's talk about that. So you get to dictate where and when and with whom you spend your time alone or apart. Maybe you don't love going to Monday Night Football, especially that Monday nights are your alone time or your weekly wine time with pals. Perhaps you need to be by yourself for a few days after a big fight. You are within your right to ask for that. And I want to expound upon that, because some people that don't respect your boundaries might say you don't have the right to be by yourself. You're going to fix this problem, and you're going to work this out right now, and you're going to stay here until you finish it. No, if the boundary was set saying I need a day or two, then you have to respect that boundary and give them a day or two. Even if you don't like it, you're going to have to do it because it's respecting someone else's boundary. The need to handle negativity, the freedom to express sexual boundaries. Let's read that. The freedom to express sexual boundaries. The beginnings of physical intimacy with a new partner is exciting time, but navigating personal boundaries and sex can be awkward or even scary. Openly communicating your needs or discomforts is essential. Through finding your words can be tricky. So that's a good one. If you're starting a new relationship and you have an intimate relationship, you want to be able to set boundaries. Healthy boundaries. So when you start a new relationship, or you enter a new friendship, or you start a budding relationship with a family member, maybe you had lost contact and now you're together. Those are the best times to start boundaries, is when you first meet somebody. You put everything out there. This is not what I prefer. This is not what I like. Let me break this down to you. And then you can say, hey, so what are some of your boundaries? I don't want to cross over your boundaries. If you go to bed at 9, I don't want to call you at 9:30. So if you go to bed at 1 a.m, is it okay to call you until 1 a.m? I understand that you go to bed at 1 a.m, but am I able to call you, or would you prefer a text? That's the communication that you need to have with family and friends and new loves and relationships. If that's what you want to do, those are the best times to set boundaries, because I'm going to be honest, sometimes when you're already in relation with someone, whether it's intimately or a family member, it's hard to or start boundaries in the middle of a relationship, because they're going to remember what you allowed them to get away with before. And that's where the difficulty lies. 17 on their list is the freedom to express spiritual boundaries. So let's talk about that quickly. Your beliefs are your own, no matter how much you may or may not have in common with your partner in terms of spirituality or religion. You and your significant other should respect each other's beliefs, foster and encourage each other's spiritual growth, and be open to learning about the other's culture or faith. So some people don't have boundaries. If someone's saying, "Oh, Jesus Christ," if you know that's not what they believe, you don't have to believe that. They might believe in Allah. So you have to allow them to have their religious beliefs and spirituality, Allah, and not try to make them say Jesus. And a lot of people have really big issues with that, because everybody doesn't respect each other's boundaries and space. They want you to believe or do what they believe or do. And that sometimes is a problem. But if you can respect the boundaries of other people, then you can get along with a lot more people of differences. The right to remain true to principles, the ability to communicate physical needs, your right to your material possessions. All right, so deciding what to share and what to keep for yourself is never an easy task. Some couples open joint bank accounts while others forego that financial independence. Material and financial boundaries are commonplace in every relationship. So even if that's a boundary, don't be picking up my credit card or my debit card to go use that. The boundary is mine and yours is yours. Now, if someone goes into your pocket or your purse and you get yours, that's stepping over boundaries. Now, some in relationships might say, well, they can use mine anytime they want. Someone might be like, it is still mine, please ask. And that's why you have to have these type of conversations to be clear. So you want to make sure you have a clear definition of what your boundaries are. So let me give you an example. So your comfort zone could be where you feel safe and in control, and it's a secure spot, right? That's your comfort zone. And then you might have a fear zone that is lack of self-confidence, finding excuses. And you might have a learning zone where you're trying to learn and understand your growth zone. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to, go through? But when someone goes out of that comfort zone, then it's hard to set boundaries, or the boundaries might get a little tricky because you don't know how to navigate when it's not just in your comfort zone. So when you can control it, or you're not sure how to control your personal space, you might not be able to be an advocate for your personal space. So I'm going to end with giving 7 tips to setting your healthy boundaries. Start your day with limit setting intentions. So for instance, I'm going to just stop there. Number 2, acknowledge what you gain by setting your boundaries. For instance, it allows you to get what you need to get under control, and it allows you to navigate smoothly with your feelings or something like that. Just think about that. And this is the thing. You have to define your boundaries, but you have to know what your boundaries are. And sometimes you don't even know what your boundary is until somebody crosses it, or you feel uncomfortable or weird. And then that's when you get to know. But you want to start first with just with everything, communicating and understanding what your boundary is, and what you like and what you don't like, and what makes you feel uncomfortable. And you can be 40 years old and don't know yet, because you've been a yes person and you just allow people to just step all over your boundaries. And some people's boundaries are, well, give me $5 or $20 or $100 or $50 or $2,000 because I know you got it. So let me just keep stepping over that financial boundary and keep asking you, or let me just take it. And you're like, well, I have it to give, I'm rich, I'm going to do it. But then that's when people cross your boundaries. And sometimes when they cross your boundaries, they take you for granted, and they use you, right? Or your boundary with, your bed is bigger than mine, so I'm going to sleep on your bed because you're not using your bed because you have 2 bedrooms. So I'm going to take this spare bedroom and I'm going to sleep on your bed. That's a boundary unless you ask if you could. You can't just assume someone can because they're plentiful in that area. And oftentimes they do that. I just have a boundary as I look at my bookshelf, a boundary with books. I didn't used to loan out books. And sometimes people would make books or DVDs because two reasons, or one reason, you don't get them back. And that's a boundary. Like, you can set the boundary. Like, somebody might come over and see my bookshelf and say, "Ooh, let me get this book." And they just grab the book and take it off the shelf. And if I didn't have a clear boundary, I'd be like, "Well, I'm going to see them tomorrow at work, or I'm going to see them. I'll get my book back." No, because my boundary is clear. Sorry, I don't lend out books. Nah, girl. But I can get you that for a gift. But no, you're going to leave that book right there. And that's the boundary. And I could, make light of it, and they'd be like, "Okay." Or they might be like, "Dang, it's just a book." Or they might be like, "All right, I ain't going to touch it." And then you can share if you want. The last time I shared my books, I never got them back. So that's why I'm like that. And that's my boundary. They can respect it, they can love it or not, but the book is staying on the shelf. You get what I'm saying? So you have the power. And then the older you get and the firmer in who you are you get, you're going to be able to set those boundaries. And I'm going to be honest, y'all, it was difficult to set boundaries with my mom. It was very difficult, but I had to do it. I had to do it for a number of reasons that I won't get into, but I had to do it because you want your spirit to feel right, your soul to feel right. You want you want that. So you have to be able to do that. Even with some friends, even with some family members, you're going to have to do that and stand firm. I had family members like, "Can you talk to this person for me? Can you talk to that person for me? Can you do this?" And I was like, "Oh, well, this one said this." And I was running all over the place. And then at the end of the day, they blamed me for everything. So my boundary was, I'm not calling anybody for nobody. I'm not calling her for you, him for her. I'm not doing that. "Well, please, can you just call just one last time?" No, I've done it 50 million times, and 50 million and one times I'm blamed for it, or my name is in the mess. So I'm not doing that. And I get it, if they need my advice, or they see me as a life coach, or just a person, or a neutral corner, or whatever it is. I get it. But I had to set the boundaries that I'm not doing that. So now my boundaries, I'm 50 years old. I ain't doing that. That's my new thing. But I'm not, because I found out a lot of stuff wasn't good for my emotional well-being. And now that I am a cancer survivor, even with health, I'm not doing it. And I'm firm in that, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay if someone be like, "Dang, that's messed up." But luckily, nobody has said that. And maybe they might be like, "Dang, I don't hear from Kendell often," or "She don't call," and it might be some chitter chatter that I ain't calling, or I'm not doing this. But I'm okay with that too, because I have to, at the end of the day, protect my mental health and my mental space. And sometimes that's what setting boundaries will do for you. And it'll make you feel relieved and less stressed. And now you're doing the things that you want to do, and you're speaking to the people that you want to speak to, and you're putting your foot firmly down here, and you're able to get me time here, and you're able to express how you feel there. And it's important to do that. Now, boundaries could be little, medium size, or small. The boundaries are what you decide you want them to be. So there's beauty in setting boundaries, because ultimately you have to look out for you. And if it's destroying your physical property, your emotional stability, your mental space, then I implore you to set boundaries. And there is beauty in boundaries, even if someone else doesn't think it is. It is. As long as you think it is, then it is. Okay. But I thank y'all so much for tuning in to this episode of Shine with Kendell Lenice. If this is your first time listening, thank you. Leave a comment, rate it if you can. Please don't be afraid to share this. Don't be stingy. I don't have boundaries when it comes to my podcast. You can share it to everybody. I don't have any limits or boundaries, because as a life coach, I want everybody to get some healing and growth, and to be able to make a difference in their own lives and take back the ownership of their lives. But thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, whatever you can do it. Thank you so much. Remember, you are a star, so don't allow anyone to dim your shine. Until next time, God bless. Peace. Thanks for listening. This has been a Kenny Lynn production.
Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together.